Hello, it's me again. It's Will. Hi, great to see you. Another video with you guys today. Don't know if you've seen me before, but I'm Will. A lot of what I do here is just reflect on questions I ask myself and sometimes ask other people. In an effort for me to be more authentic, to challenge myself, to push myself, to be out there and kind of honest about who I am. So, without further ado, another question for today. Question for today is like, how do I measure my self-worth? So this is kind of a big topic, but I feel that I measure my self-worth through a few things. So I did the previous video on values, right? If you haven't seen that, I'll link it somewhere. But the values I use kind of help me create a bit of a barometer for my self-worth. I guess a lot of the conflict I find, I'm going to outline this first because I don't know if you guys feel this too, but something I certainly feel when I think about self-worth are a couple things, right? So I think about Carl Rogers is like interjected values, right? So I think about like, am I judging myself on a standard from other people? All right. Is my self-worth being affected right now because I am following someone else's standards? This also harkens back to kind of the mask video I made the other day, and I think a lot of what my mask is me trying to adapt around my assumptions of what other people's standards are, right? So, for example, if I have the prim and proper mask I talked about in the last video, which is a TLDR, like I just speak a bit more posh, a bit more fancy, don't swear, I'm very calm, I'm very measured, very empathetic, very kind of in a listening mode, that kind of mask, right? A value that I was given was that, like, as a boy, you'd be quiet, you'd be helpful, you'd be supportive and caring, right? That was a value I was given. So to come back to measuring self-worth, right? If I am not seen as somebody who is empathetic, is thoughtful, is calm, etc., I feel hurt. And then that affects my self-worth, right? Because one of my values, again, is to like be accepting, be compassionate, be empathetic. So if I don't feel I'm kind of following those values, then my self-worth kind of tanks, right? It kind of feels pretty bad. And like I feel this. Like sometimes when I'm trying to support people in my work, I'm trying to be empathetic and compassionate, sometimes I miss. I'm human. I mess up. And like historically, it really hurt my self-worth. It like kicked my self-worth in the nuts. And I felt sometimes like a lot of resistance to continue engaging with that. I think that was like a lot of my emotional distress was like, oh my god, my self-worth has taken like a gut punch. Ooh. And a really great example of this, another value I've had is creativity, right? Making things, music, videos, whatever, right? So when I think about doing those things now, I've been on a hell of a journey to try and like figure out how to be creative without basically running into the self-worth brick wall. So when I was in university, I was doing a degree in film and television, right? Aberystwyth University, repping. Love Aberystwyth. Had a good time there. Had a lot of frustrations at the time, but I think it was actually a lot to do with my own self-worth. So I'm going to talk about that a bit here. But when I was at Aberystwyth, I did a film degree. We had media production modules where we had to like make stuff regularly and show it to the class. And for me, that was terrifying. Like, I don't know if you guys are like me, but like the idea of like regularly showing my stuff to other people made me just want to turn into a puddle on the floor. I was like in a state of panic. I was so anxious every week that we'd shoot something and we'd show it, and shoot something and we'd show it. And like I sat through a lot of them, and I was just internally cringing so much I couldn't handle it. And I think reflecting on that, it was really like a measure of my self-worth. I think at the time I had kind of a bit of an overinflated ego that like I was really good at this filmmaking thing, right? And like everything I had to make had to be at like a certain standard, and it had to be great. But honestly, you know, it wasn't. It was a student film. I was in university. And I think from my cultural background, like I'm like the first person in my like main family to go to university. So I guess at the time I had this idea, well, like I'm supposed to be smart. I'm supposed to be able to like do this stuff and be really good at it because I got to university for it, right? But like the reality I know now is that like in university we're all just like figuring it out, and it's just like another level higher academically, where we, you know, write bigger essays but also try and push to develop in a certain way. But we're still students, we're still learning, we're still not good at a lot of things. That's okay. I had this perfectionistic tendency that I think was really kind of like running the motor that was my self-worth engine, right? And it was like, well, it has to be perfect, but we don't have enough time, and I don't feel good enough to create something that meets these standards. So I'm just gonna like pump something out because I have to, because of the deadline, because, you know, I can't let other people down. So I'd pump out a film every week, and it was such a struggle for me. This was in the first year, and you know, the whole 3 years it was a struggle for me. And I felt like I almost got a bit of a reputation among the tutors in a way, kind of, because when I talked to them, I seemed like really competent, right? I gave the impression that I was competent, I think. So I remember the kind of expectation, but also from the tutors, being sort of high. And I know my final year film, like I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't proud of it. We kind of rushed it. I felt like I was doing everything on that film. But then I also wasn't confident in my ability to like execute something good. But I was like put in the director role, I guess, with some resources. We shot it in a... Oh, no, there you go. There's a little bump. We shot it in Nanteos Hotel, Nanteos Hotel, in Wales, near Aberystwyth. It was really spooky. Did a horror film there. And I just felt terrible about it, man. I edited it, and I was like just feeling sick to my stomach of this film, of this idea. It felt incoherent to me. I was so just worried and scared. And there was like a whole like ceremony at the end of the year of like all the films that were made, right? And I was so full of anxiety and disappointment and everything. And I won an award. For sound design, right? It still blows my mind now that the final year award ceremony, I won an award in sound design. And I think it just goes to show that, like, you know, as I look back on that stuff compassionately now, it's like, oh man, like I was exploring, I was like trying stuff out. And like everything wasn't going to land, and like that's okay. It's like a film degree. But I think at the time I was like, holy hell, this stuff's terrible. Like I need to be better. Why isn't this stuff good? I try things and I try things and I try things and they don't work. And that was really hit my self-worth around film in general, right? So I went on like, you know, I did my film degree, and I had this. And before I finished my film degree, I did like a little internship, a couple internships. I did one on a Netflix show on Hinterland in Wales, and then I did another kind of short kind of internship at a sound studio in Twickenham Studios. And I think the whole time, I think the real big problem I ran into, like in both of those internships, which I was very lucky to get, was that I was so guarded and so defensive and so on the back foot, and really struggled to just accept that I was where I was. And I think ultimately that's what led to me not connecting with people, and then building the industry connections that would have like actually led to me getting some momentum in that industry. So, you know, yeah, I worked on it a little bit, but like there were long days. Also, you know, working the long days on set, holding a boom pole, just felt really bad. I felt very unconfident with myself. I think it all comes from this idea of like being white trash and like batting above my station, and I come from a very poor background, so I was like, do I even deserve to be here? Should I be doing any of this stuff? While also having this desire to be creative, right? So there's a huge internal conflict there for me about like, holy hell, like I'm like, how am I here? Like, I want to be here, but like I don't deserve to be here, right? So huge conflict for me. Self-worth was through the floor, and like I think I was achieving reasonably and decently, and I think if I was a bit more at peace with myself and had a bit more self-worth, I think I'd be more confident to say that I think I would have had a good shot. I think I'm now better at making connections with people, because I think I'm a bit more at peace with myself. But then I was not. I really wasn't. I think that sent me into a hell of a spiral. Very low self-worth after that. For a while in my early to mid to almost later on in my, probably mid-20s, right? So my worth kind of improved when I figured out my values a bit more. So I guess to round out the sharing and exploration a little bit here, I feel for me, I had these really high expectations that tried to materialize in high standards and thinking I could do everything perfectly, but that's like crazy. It's like unrealistic, and it made me feel like shit, and it actually put me off making films for a very long time. I could only like make things collaboratively in a big group, and even then I know I'm like emotionally on the back foot. I'm like, oh, I remember like having these high standards and then not really executing on them. So that got in the way of me being creative. That got in the way of me being authentic. That got in the way of allowing myself to play. So, yeah, I feel I measure my self-worth, essentially, as a TLDR, through how creative I'm being now. I think that's better calibrated to how it used to be. I think historically it was, hey, we need to make really good stuff. Anything that isn't really good, like from a film point of view, is garbage. Why are we doing this? Why bother? Fall in despair, fall into hopelessness. But now I feel through a lot of therapy and a lot of coaching and a lot of all the other stuff I do, like I am coming to a point where I'm more accepting that I'm playing and I'm in a process and I'm in an experience, and like that's valuable and that's good, and that's how you first of all improve, but second of all, like leaning into the values here of being authentic, compassionate, present, accepting, whatever. Like I need to be accepting with myself if I kind of want to be accepting with other people, right? And I also need to enjoy what I'm doing more than anything. I wanted to create full stop because I got a lot out of it. It was fun. It was interesting. I got into the zone. I got to be present, and I think I still, maybe pockets of my psyche still measure my self-worth on how creatively competent I feel I am. Where I feel the healthier approach in my head now is, how often can I engage with the creative process and be more accepting of the bigger bandwidth of creativity that I'm going to have? I might have some really great ideas that I can execute on really well sometimes, and I'm also going to have terrible ideas that I'm not going to execute on well, and like be okay with that, because I think that's a big part of my process. I mean, being dyslexic, I have what I would call a cognitively spiky mental profile, and like sometimes I'm gonna have banger ideas, and sometimes I'm gonna roll a nat one, and I'm gonna have a bad time, and it's gonna look dumb. I'm gonna look dumb. I'm gonna feel dumb. And I think keeping the gradient in mind for me helps keep my self-worth in a more measured place. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that question. Would love to hear yours in the comments. Have a good day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Best of luck, and be a bit kinder to yourself. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.